welcome to what's new for 2026 CAPS audits, and thrilled to have whoever is here. And Sarah, we're also really happy to have Sarah from the Agency of Ag. Pablo, one of our lead auditor for the CAPS program, should join us at some point if he's not here. And Emily, my colleague, who's the admin specialist for CAPS. So basically, I'm here, Hans Estrin, and I'm really the educator, and I'm on for any plan support, audit support, and Emily is around and really taking on the full role for audit admin support. So we'll get into this, and there are definitely some changes this year, so I'm glad whoever is here is here. So what are the changes? Today we're going to look first at the change. One of the big things that's been driving this is a change in role for the Agency of Ag, Food and Markets for Vermont, and Sarah's going to look at that. That's really been at least 3 years in the making. So, and we piloted some stuff last year, but it's really official now for everyone. And part of that pilot is that the approach of the audit has changed subtly, where there's general standards and requirements. So we're going to jump into what, again, clarify what that is. Many of you, I think, may have been through this last year as part of the pilot program. And totally new this year is that the format of the audit is going to be a little different, starting with the self-assessment for each audit. And we're going to talk about that just a wee bit and why. And then Emily's going to talk about some admin changes. And then I'm going to just review a couple of the changes to the CAPS revisions for the CAPS plan that some of you may have been in already, but it'll be a good sort of review. And then really important, this won't be that long of a presentation, but I think it's key to have some questions and comments from who's here, and especially suggestions. It's not too late to tweak some things, and we're all ears. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Sarah.
Yeah, so hi everyone. Nice to meet you or see you again virtually. My name is Sarah Mcllvennie. My pronouns are she and her, and I work at the Agency of Ag, Food and Markets for Vermont. I'm here today talking about the agency's change in role, but also representing both of my predecessors, Christina Sweet and Abby Willard. So I'll be talking about some history that precedes me, but my division of the agency has been working with Hans very closely for a long time, and a lot of you as farmers on this program. Okay, this is a super brief 30,000-foot view. How did we get here? Again, I know a lot of the farmers in the room and who will be watching this recording have been here much longer than I have in this conversation. But for those who haven't been, the Food Safety Modernization Act, or FSMA, was signed into law in 2011, and the Produce Safety Rule, so FSMA PSR, is one piece of that bigger act. When that happened, the Agency of Agriculture and partners, including VVBGA and UVM Extension, who are already doing a lot of work to try to support produce farms holistically, realized there was a pretty big change on the horizon in terms of federal regulations and continuing to navigate market access. Out of that, the Community Accreditation for Produce Safety, or CAPS, Advisory Board was created. And through the work of that board, the program that you all know as CAPS and then the CAPS+ audits were launched in 2015 and 2016. I love that it started with 5 farms in 2016 and has grown so much since then. So then in 2023, fast forward through 7 or 8 years of work, or 5 or 6 years, I, at that point, had taken over kind of coordination of the audits for the agency and was working closely with Hans and Vern, and at the time, Julie Callahan, and then Emily. And we realized there was some big factors shifting, and that we kind of launched into a bit of a 2-year review, which we'll talk about a little bit more. And that brings us to where we are now. And then starting this year, VVBGA will be taking over all of the coordination of the audits. Super briefly, so this program, CAPS, the foundational program, and then the audit program, were created to support Vermont farmers navigating federal food safety regulations and market access requirements, which are similar and also not the same, which is very confusing and nuanced at times. And created that program through the CAPS Advisory Board, the original partners being VVBGA, UVM Extension, the Agency of Ag, and the Vermont Department of Health. At that time, when the Advisory Board and CAPS was created, the rollout of FSMA PSR came with a really big push around education around food safety standards. And with that came a big push of funding, which is an important piece because as the landscape of that federal regulation has changed, so has the funding landscape that goes with it. But since 2016 up until this year, my predecessor, Christina, and then myself worked closely with Hans to do a lot of the scheduling of the audits. Agency of Ag employees performed a lot of the audits and follow-up, and then a lot of farmers received invoices from the Agency of Ag. Throughout this time, as I had said, a lot of intersecting landscapes around produce farming have been changing. The big three that kind of led Hans and I and other partners to be like, let's take a bigger look at this program is FSMA PSR implementation has really shifted now that they're over a decade in, and there's a much bigger focus on maintenance of the rule and a much less focus on support for outreach and education. Additionally, there are other funding landscapes federally that have been shifting, which I think we're probably all aware of and impacted by. And then the third piece is more emergent, which is that wholesale market access dynamics are shifting, especially when there's more of a regional focus on buying, and there's been some consolidation of smaller buyers. And so really trying to make sure that we were adjusting to these adjusting variables to make sure this program was sustainable. So what does all of this mean? It means that over the past 2 years, again, Hans and Emily and also Julia Callahan and I and Vern have been taking a really close look at the program. And some of these changes might seem bigger, but we made them really with deep intention to create rigorous and sustainable foundation so that the CAPS Plus audits can be available for Vermont and regional farmers into the future. It means that you'll see more of the FSMA standards, more of the FSMA PSR integrated into the standards. And this was to really ensure that CAPS Plus can be comparable to GFSI, which are private audit schemes, and to harmonize GAP through the USDA. We're streamlining coordination, so it's moving all into VVBGA so that that's easier for everyone, farmers and staff alike. And we wanted to create capacity for the program to grow, both regionally and who can receive audits, and in the way that to be situated to be able to do more like facilitation with buyers, which is a little bit more nuanced of a space for the agency to sit in. What does this look like? It looks like there's a lot of words on that right-hand table, but effectively the agency will be moving out of all of our coordinating and auditing roles, and we will become advisors. So we'll be working to recreate the advisory council that created CAPS in the first place, and the agency will I will sit in the agency's chair on that council, but all of the auditors this season will be contracted through VUBGA, and Emily's taking over all of the coordination. So we're very excited about these changes. It's been a long process, but they all feel really good.
Yeah, and I will just say in front of everyone that this collaboration has been really meaningful, and I think it will really benefit growers over time. So I'm excited to move ahead, and I think we have latitude. We've got some sustainability capacity to grow as well. So thank you, Sarah. And is Pablo here? That is one question I have. Let's see.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Hi, Pablo. How are
Great.
you?
Oh, here, yes.
Great. Well, you can't, many people can't see who's in the room, but there are 14 of us, I think. And I think we might have all of our new auditors here, which is great. And Pablo is the lead auditor who you cannot see at the moment, but you heard his voice. And we're just going to go through a couple of the things that are probably pretty relevant well, will be relevant to just about everyone. And one thing is that the approach of the audit really is that we have piloted this last year, but we really came up with overview standards and in addition to the requirements. And the reason for this is an example of the reason for this in section 7. So I'll jump into it. But the general standard is really reflects, or we should say the requirement reflects the standard. So we just wanted to have that integrity where we could really on one page put all the standards, and it's pretty clear, right? So for wash pack facility cleaning, it's just that it's cleaned at a reasonable frequency, manner that minimizes risk of contamination. So the requirement in the plan is that you describe how and when you're going to clean your wash pack facility. And why that's important to have the distinction is that the CAPS auditors in the past would come into farms and they were ground truthing the plan. They didn't really have jurisdiction to sort of take a bigger bird, more of a step back and look at, was the requirement that's stated in the plan, is it actually meeting the overall standard that's driving it? So, for example, the wash pack may look really not clean, but the standard the requirement in the plan has been met. Right, it's described well. They may have, how often they're cleaning it, all that kind of stuff. But it may not meet the standard or fall short of it. Okay, so that's one thing. Pablo, do you want to say anything about that? I wanted to give you a chance to mention another example or to give people a sense of that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think this started with just kind of, like cobwebs over the wash sink kind of thing where, yes, we have, our weekly cleaning and It's like, yes, okay, but there's, debris about to, fall. It's kind of the ability of the auditor to have some observational findings of how things look on the ground.
Great. All right, that's great. And this is totally new this year, as I mentioned. One thing that has happened in the past is all of you know about the self-assessment that you're doing ideally the week before the audit, just to help prepare for the audit. It really goes through all the requirements and you're sort of checking, yeah, I met that. And it's going to help make the audit go more efficiently, have it be lower cost, less time for everyone. So it's sort of streamlining the process. The problem was that very few people did the self-assessment before the audit. Now, this made it turn into a totally useless exercise because if they had to correct it afterwards, it didn't make any sense to do it. It was just the stupid paperwork. So what we're going to do actually this year, and again, I have a sense this will go fairly well, but we're going to start each audit with reviewing the self-assessment that should be done. It's in a slightly different format. It will have the standard on the top. This is an example, and the requirements there. And you, as the grower, preparing for the audit, say a week before, the day before, night before, you can sort of go through this. It should reflect what is, it will help prepare you for the audit. It is also exactly pretty much the form that the auditors will use to do their audit. So there's full transparency here. Everyone's going to be on the same page, and that should be helpful. It should help communication go well. It should help if there are any corrections. It's like a known thing. So that's what we're hoping for with this. Pablo, any thoughts or any additions?
No, I think it's great. Do it up front. And hopefully it'll be done before the audit starts. But if not, how long do you think it takes to do, Hans, from start to finish?
Probably 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah. So it's almost the kinds of things one would go over in an opening meeting on, say, a larger farm anyway. So
I think if it wasn't done, our thought was, right, we would just sit down and do it. And it may add a little extra time to the audit. but that's the way it is. It would go better if it's done before.
Yeah.
Okay. And so those are really the major approach changes to the audit. And then Emily is going to say some things about the audit admin changes, and we'll move on from there.
Thanks, Hans. And so as Sarah mentioned in her quick presentation, all the admin will be switching over to the VVBGA. So for myself, who mostly has interacted with a lot of the growers with CAPS Plus and just finalizing plans and getting certificates out, my role is shifting a little bit this year. So I've just added my email at the bottom of this slide again, so folks remember how to get in touch. And you can hop over to the next slide, Hans. So this is just my quick opportunity to get a plug in for making sure the front end admin is completed for all farms. So before we're scheduling your audit and getting your auditor to your farm, we want to make sure that you've, done everything that you need by April 1st. These first two steps, 1 and 2, you should be kind of well on your way, renewing your VVBGA membership and selecting that you want to be enrolled in the CAPS Plus program. And then now is the time in these next 2 weeks to be logging into your plan, addressing those areas that need to be updated every year, and the areas that Hans will mention a little later today, section 3 and 7, that need updates from all farms, getting that draft of your produce safety plan submitted for review by April 1st. And once you've done that, you get on my list to get your audit scheduling form emailed to you. So you'll look for that in your inbox in mid-April. We ask that you complete it by June 5th, and that has all that critical information that I'm going to be compiling to get information out to your auditors. That helps us now that we're going to have a team of 3 stateside auditors that will help us kind of figure out who will be visiting your farm. Pablo used to be our traveler, but we'll have Linda and Alice and Pablo this year. So it's really critical that you fill out that form as soon as you can before the season gets too busy. And just to clarify that once you submit that form, your audit hasn't been scheduled yet. Your auditor who will be assigned to your farm will reach out to you in June to start the scheduling process. And so if you're one of those earlier farms who you're going to have early greens, you expect your auditor to reach out to you sooner. If you're a potato grower, don't worry if your auditor hasn't reached out to you in June. They'll probably be reaching out to you in July to schedule something for later in the year. So as Sarah said too, with the shift over to VVBGA, we're really hoping that not much is going to feel very different for the farmers, and that if anything, it's going to feel a little more streamlined. Instead of getting your audit report emailed from the agency, you're going to be getting your audit report emailed to you through me, the capsvt@uvm.edu email. So I'll function as the liaison between the farmers and auditors. So you should expect your audit report about a week after the auditor has visited the farm. And many of you are very familiar with this. You'll either get an audit passing score for your initial audit or corrections required. And Sarah and Hans both mentioned the pilot program. One of the aspects of the pilot program last year were the concept of red and yellow flags in your audit report form. And so the auditor may flag some items for either immediate or long-term correction. So any red flag items will need to be completed within 30 days and documented in order for you to pass that audit for this year. And any yellow flag items are items that are maybe a lot more long-term fixes that the auditor didn't see as an immediate produce safety risk, but that auditor would like to see addressed before your next year's audit. So any yellow flag items that haven't been addressed by the following year's audit become red flag items, and then will need to be addressed. So for a lot of you were audited by Sarah and other agency auditors over the years, and we're emailing corrections back and forth directly with your auditor. So that's something that will feel different this year, that any requested corrections will and documentation of that will be sent to the CAPS admin email. And then anything that needs to be double checked by the auditor, that will be me going back and forth on behalf of the farmer. So assuming corrections are all complete, you'll get your CAPS Plus certificate issued, and that will feel the same as last year. The certificate is issued once you've received your passing audit status and also have completed any other documentation that's required on your produce safety plan. I just have a little reminder here on the slide that the most common things that we're looking for kind of around that audit time are the water test, employee training records, your mock recall, and manure spreading records. All things that really should be in there before your auditor arrives on the farm anyway, but sometimes those loose ends we're still working on in order for you to get everything wrapped up for the year. Billing is also going to be completely processed by the VVBGA this year. You won't be getting a bill from the Agency of Ag. If you're a Canadian farm, it's going to feel the same as last year because Canadian farms were all billed through Quebec Rye, I believe. But so this year, if you're a US farm, that's going to feel different. You'll get a bill hopefully a little faster through the VVBGA than the agency. So that we hope will feel more streamlined and easier for farmers. So again, look for an email from the CAPS VT and we'll be mailing invoices out as well.
Great. Thank you, Emily, for that detailed overview. Okay, so I'll just spend a minute or two looking at this stuff. These revisions were instituted mostly last year well, I shouldn't say all of them, but with the pilot farms, we were headed in this direction. And so we've taken some time to think through trying to streamline the plan and focus on what would be really clean and efficient production flow for a higher risk crop. So that's really where this shift has come in many ways. So Section 3 is actually changed more significantly. Section 7, which is the washback cleaning facility, hasn't changed that much, but will need to be tweaked. And there's a very little change in Section 16, the health and hygiene. And the idea really, again, is to streamline and focus on highest risk crops and also to better align with business produce safety rule, which is about, what Sarah was talking about earlier. This really shouldn't impact lower risk crops plans that much at all, and we want to know about it if they do. That wasn't the intention or idea. So remember, April 1, that's the time to try to get these revisions done. I can work with any of you directly. I can take dictation if need be. So these shouldn't be too hard. Section 3, the old one was farm containers and risk reduction. You'll now see it says contact surface cleaning and risk reduction. And again, that's really a shift, a focus to this higher risk surfaces from field to customer. And just a screenshot of what it looks like, but basically the high risk standard is food contact surfaces really are identified, cleaned, and managed to minimize risk of contamination. And typical ones you would know, but in the field, harvest knives, tools, rubber bands maybe. Well, hands are always there. Tanks and conveyors known, spray tables are known, spinner baskets have been done, but sorting packing tables, but there might, conveyors may not have been in there before, but there may be some new surfaces that you would list, and generally storage and display, you won't have much, but if you go to farmers markets and are doing CAPS Plus, you may end up having some stuff there. So like pool skimmers, harvest knives, knives for harvesting cabbage, maybe a cutting blade for a quick cut, those kinds of things that you want to take and focus on a high risk crop. And even if it is not the whole wholesale crop, if it's for your farm stand, that's where all of CAPS is headed in this direction. It's the same for everyone. So it doesn't really matter. It's a whole farm, a whole farm certification. So that's the big change. And it won't take that long. You can do it in a lot of different ways. You're identifying those contact surfaces. You can either do it as a list in the text field, or you can use what is very much like the master cleaning plan template. So we have really the similar template, and basically oops, I missed one thing here. Sorry, I've got to go back to, so yeah, scrubbing with soap and water is part of the SOP. That is what you want to decide the frequency of. But basically you decide the frequency of the cleaning, and that's really important. So let's say you are washing, or things with soap and water, a deeper clean once a week, but you're rinsing and tidying up every time after you harvest 4 days a week. Well, you wouldn't need to have the 4-day-a-week thing in this master or in the this contact surface cleaning plan. Really, just you're going to put in the times you're cleaning with soap and water. So it may be the frequency may be less, but it's the more important actual cleaning. And you all have seen this CAPS cleaning SOP, which has been a requirement since last year. But that scrubbing with soap and water is really what we want the focus to be, because it really is where that clean break is, or the risk is reduced dramatically. And that is really aligned with FSMA. So this is a big sort of shift towards focusing on this kind of cleaning, not necessarily every time. It might be much less frequent, but again, the more thorough cleaning. And scrubbing with soap and detergent is important. This has been a major problem with plans, or let's say error in plans, where there'd be something like we clean with sanitizer 2 times a week. And that's a misnomer, really, because of the way detergent works. It's surrounding dirt and grime and then water washing it off. So both scrubbing and the use of detergent is an important part that it should be outlined in the plan. Many people do this, most people do it, but often it's not stated. So what about sanitizer? Sanitizer is great, but do it after cleaning, and it's actually not required all the time. You could do it less frequently. The scrubbing with soap and water and drying is really the most important thing. And so just keep that in mind, the sanitizer just for clean surface. And then section 7, you're going to just need to simplify, just go through and edit it, because it should be, you want to keep it really simple. It's going to be like it was before, but you don't need to go into the detail of cleaning your dunk tanks, because that's already done in section 3. So outlining the equipment, your flow, this should be really helpful for the farm. I think many of you have done that. And then sort of think through, like, what's our end of the day cleaning routine? What's the basic general cleaning? Just describing that. And last is health and hygiene. There's a small change to that, and it's basically the last bullet in the standard health and hygiene, which should be added to the CAPS Plus plans. And that's really just to train employees about an expectation to use provided toilets and hand washing stations. And you might say, that's interesting. Well, it is kind of. And we can go into this in more detail, anyone, if you want to talk to me about it. But both with some of the FSMA inspections and CAPS inspections, there were some issues with use of the facilities, because they weren't necessarily convenient enough. And I've come to appreciate how important it is to have the convenience there, even if it's less than 5 minutes away. It is the kind of thing that if it is a pain to walk back or wash your hands, or if you need to use the bathroom, but it's kind of too far away, and it puts a lot of stress on employees. And that's one of the things, never mind sort of lower, the risk management is not great, potentially. But so that's something I am very focused on helping folks this year. If you want to have more convenient facilities in remote fields, just talk to me and we can talk through some of the options. And that is it. So I'm going to stop there, and remember to contact me or Emily for either education or plan support or admin support. And let's open it up to questions and discussion. So stop the share, and if you all are able to turn on your video, that's great. And you're going to get to see the faces of our new auditors, Alice and Linda. If you're out there, you could wave. And Pablo's here.
One thing I wanted to say is that the auditor is not necessarily going to evaluate, whether the sanitation level is sufficient for the crop in question, that kind of thing. That's not on the audit day per se. That's something that the auditor would not, I don't think, make a judgment call on.
All right, questions, discussion, suggestions for improvement, worries, red flags, anything. Just this, we're all open ears here and are very happy to consider anything you say and help address it, but also perhaps make some changes if we can to improve.
Hans, I have a question. So it's the CAPS now is going to be run, well, it's run through the VBGA instead of the state, but have you heard any feedback from Whole Foods or people like that wondering if the growers are just self-auditing themselves as opposed to a state agency, or?
That is a great question. So, and it's something we've actually thought a fair bit about. And I think part of the reason the advisory council and keeping the agency directly involved with their logo on our certificate and that kind of stuff is very important. It's an important part of this process. And I think the berry growers, forming this advisory council, it's actually, let's say, reforming it because it was there before, but having it meet annually to kind of look at the standards, how to go, feedbacks or debrief stuff is going to be pretty important. But I'll tell you, I've spent so much time with Whole Foods and, back and forth, and sort of like it's a little bit feel like I should know how to do a lot of backflips now, but I'm not quite there yet. Anyway, some rep from Austin is coming to visit me and maybe a farm this summer. They're like interested. But the good side of this is that I think a lot of the bigger buyers are really scratching their heads about how to buy from smaller farms. And so CAPS like comes out as this option for this high integrity program that really gives other services and makes it a lot easier for that to happen. So I think that's what we're shooting for, and the integrity is a really important part of making that work.
So is Whole Foods giving you lots of kind of questioning of the program and all your backflips, or is it?
Yeah, it's been more. They seem actually psyched about it. It's been more like the farm's address wasn't on the title page of the audit and the audit report, and there's just like these little things that they have to check the boxes of. But I haven't heard, and we went through this whole process to keep you all from doing this outrageous self-assessment that was about how far CAFOs were from your facility and all this stuff. So it's like they understand the value, I think.
Okay.
But David, I think you hit on, one of the key challenges of this transition, right? This program is not regulatory, but it needs the endorsement of regulators to have credibility. And that's where having the regulator on the advisory council and having the language be clearly aligned with the PSR supports that argument. But in the end, the buyer has to accept that it's a third-party system based on and aligned with regulation, but it's not being conducted by a regulatory entity. So I think people should be receptive to that. Certainly worked hard over the years to make it, quack like a duck, even though it's not exactly a duck.
And what I can just add really quickly, and we actually didn't talk about this, which is maybe helpful. So my colleagues in food safety consumer protection who do the inspections under FSMA and Abby Willard and myself and Vern and Hans have spent a lot of time talking about how do we, meet all the goals, which is like keeping that support, keeping that rigor, while giving the program the flexibility it deserves to breathe and grow in ways that the agency, as like an in-state agency with regulatory responsibilities, can't necessarily exist in certain spaces. And one of the pieces of the advisory council will be like annual review of the audits. So there will still be touch point of the content of the audits and of the standards. It will just look a little different. But we're really working towards meeting the goals of keeping the agency involved in a way that feels supportive for everyone and feels, aligned with the buyer's needs.
The two, if Alice and Linda could real quickly just introduce yourself and say where you're from. And this, each of them will take maybe about 10 audits, so you may have them, and so put a face to a name. We're really thrilled to have them join us this year.
I can go first.
Okay.
I'm Alice Tucson. I'm based out of Concord, New Hampshire. So I used to work for the New Hampshire Department of Ag Markets and Food, which involves some GAP audits as well as organic certification. And during COVID, I transitioned over full-time to another certifying agency for the NOP program, CCOF, out in California. And I also do contract inspections for Maine. And so, yeah, I look back at the first slide and I'm like, oh my gosh, FSMIC first came out in 2011. It just felt so like yesterday. And I remember going, people were like, oh, what do we need to do? What about these water tests? There were so many questions, and that was definitely an opportunity to educate people who are supposed to be verifying farms as well as farms as to what needs to be done. So that was like a huge shock when I was like, oh my gosh, 15 years. And so I'm sure things have changed and some of the bumps have been smoothed out. So I'm looking forward to meeting the growers that I'll be assigned to, working with you guys, and yeah, happy to be here, happy to help and dig through some of these nuances that some of the wholesale markets want from small and medium scale producers.
Thanks so much, Alice. Linda?
I'm Linda, and I work out of Wolcott, Vermont. I'm also a contract inspector for VOF and MAFCA in Maine, and sometimes for PCO in Pennsylvania. And from 2011 to 2014, I was the crop vegetable technical advisor for NOFA Vermont. So I was kind of part of when FSMA was introduced in 2011 and sort of saw that evolve until I left NOFA in 2014. And following that, I worked as the farm manager at the Rodale Institute, and we were one of the pilot farms for their program. So I feel like, this has been in the background of my work for quite a while and seems to fit nicely. I'm sure that some of the farms who I inspect for organic certification will also be recipients of CAPS audits. And when I was discussing coming on as a CAPS auditor, we talked a little bit about could a CAPS audit actually be an add-on to an organic certification inspection, which would mean one day of scheduling for producers. So, hopefully this can kind of dovetail really nicely.
Thanks, Linda. And just the add-on thing that you just mentioned, if we did try anything like that, it would be on the same day, but sort of separate. If first the auditor comes, they do their old thing and leave, put on a new hat, have a cup of coffee, come back, and do the other thing. So I think that's part of the integrity.
If I could just add on to that, VOF and Maine Certification Services already do this with the Real Organic program. We sort of okay, stop, and now we're doing a Real Organic project inspection, and that's been really nicely worked out. So there is some precedent for that kind of auditing.
Great. Well, that's just an idea at this point, but we do need to meet and talk about it. But it's great to have new people who have a lot of experience and come in and are going to give some new ideas to the way the program works. So on that line, suggestions for improving audits, concerns, changes. I haven't heard much with that, or any other questions too, but you can drop stuff in the chat or just voice it now. That'd be great. We have a few more minutes and love to hear anything that's on your mind.
It also looks like Veronica has a comment.
Yes, if I can add something for what Linda said, we have one member with Quebec Vrai far north, and I'm doing the organic and the CAPS on the same day. So when I take my appointment, I make sure that it is in production to meet all the CAPS. It needs to be in production. So I do all my organic inspection. All the way. I give my organic report, and then after that we start the CAPS. So there's a couple of things that we will look at the same time when we are in the field, but I really try to make it separate, but it works very well. And the farmers really appreciate it because they have just like one day to plan for his both inspections.
Joey wrote that Tony said not really any suggestions or concerns, changes, except any communication that can happen between the auditor and us leading up to the audit is helpful. Sometimes we can get paperwork over ahead of time to make it take less time. Thanks for that.
And if I can chime in, Hans, Joey and Tony bring up a good point that, the paperwork that you want to get done prior to the auditor's visit is that self-audit checklist, because this year will literally be going through it with your auditor on their dime if you haven't done it before they arrive. So that's one way to make the audit take less time. And the other thing that I've noticed in helping with admin with the audits last year is it's just those little things like making sure that your water test, you probably did it and you probably have the report somewhere, but making sure that it's uploaded to your plan so that your auditor can see it when they review your online plan prior to their visit. Because if they've seen it, when they visit, that's great, but I don't know that it's been uploaded and I don't see it, so I can't issue your certificate yet, even though it's probably there. So those last little annual documentation items that need to be renewed every year, just making sure that's all uploaded onto your produce safety plan on the online plan builder will just help everything go faster after your audit on the admin side as well.
Joey, I think, case in point for you guys, and this is a good example, but I think that the master cleaning plan in your plan is for field pack kale, which is great. It's what you're sending out most probably, most of the time to Whole Foods through Deep Root or wherever. That said, so adding, say, your triple base sink routine to the plan in a form is probably something you'd want to do. If you want to just call me and talk to me because we haven't talked for a while, you can just talk me through it. I'll take some notes and I can actually translate it, put it into that form, and we upload that in the right place. So you'll still have your other one. So you can do it yourself too. That's great. I'm just saying that is the extent of my offer. Actually will go like that too. So run stuff by me or ask for help in one way or another. It's part of my job.
Awesome. And I'll reach out, Hans. I have no problem with that.
Yeah. Any concerns with the changes coming up? Sort of like, oh, what about, I don't know, anything that we went over that was like, that didn't seem like that's going to be hard, or we'd love to hear it if you think what's the most challenging part of this or not.
Also, if there are any growers joining who haven't done an audit before and have any questions about that, might be one.
Yeah, welcome Morningstar Farm there. You're not, I guess the video is not on, but from Hudson, New York, Steph's joining us. Great to see you. But new farm getting an audit early this year. And I think Pablo's your auditor.
Yeah, we could just start the opening meeting right now.
I'm meeting in a room that's adjacent to the lunchroom, so there's a lot of hullabaloo. So it's going to be on silent, but I'm excited.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, well, I know you all are real busy, so I'll give it just a second or two more, but then we'll end 15 minutes early, just because that's the right thing to do.
Well, I just wanted to thank everyone that's making the program work. As I love to point out, it really is pretty magical. I mean, straddling the regulators, the grower association, an international border, it's really just evolved over time to meet grower needs, but I don't think we could have imagined it would have been this accommodating, when we started. It takes time for people to wrap their minds around it sometime. Poor Hans has new buyers at Whole Foods every few years that have to do that, but I know like the Hannaford person is super excited about it and said they wish more farmers were doing it in other states too. So now that we have a full fleet of auditors, who knows? It might continue to expand.
Yeah, and I'll just reiterate, probably mostly for the recording, but I appreciate from the presentation, this could feel like the agency taking a step back because we're taking a step back. I want to be very clear that that is not us changing our support for this program or our investment in this program. It will just look different. This is such a crucial program for Vermont farmers and for Vermont and regional supply chains, and where the changes feel like really wonderful opportunities for growth and iteration for the program, while we can still remain a very invested partner. And I'm happy to talk with folks if they have any other questions offline, but just wanted to make that clear. And we're very excited for this season.
Thanks so much, Sarah.